Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, collectors of all ages, it is Aussieverse, and we are back, baby. I am OmniBeau, joined by the Sheriff around these parts, the Custom King, the Sharif. And today is a very special, auspicious episode, something that has been in the works for a very long time. It has landed. We are here. We are introducing G. Lee, the Associate Sales Manager of Penguin Random House, and Hector Torres from the Senior Sales Management position. Thank you very much, guys, for joining us. This is amazing.
Thank you.
How are you going?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. Thank you for rolling your R's on my last name, Torres. I love it.
my partner is Spanish, so I've had a lot of practice. Before we do continue, we do want to give a big shout out to our paid members. We call them our for lifers, and that is all the names that you see on the screen here. Thank you very much for each and every one of your contribution. Now, remember, if you want to be a member of the Aussieverse for lifers, hit the link and you certainly can, but don't feel obligated. The best way to support Aussieverse is simply by subscribing to the videos, liking them, commenting, and all of the other 10 things YouTube asks you to do. We are also sponsored by Comic Bookaroo, Australia's #1 online comic book store. A word from them later. That is enough of the plug-in. Let's get down to some loving. Yeah. Guys, thank you so much for being up so early for us. It really is amazing that we could make this work. How are you going? What's happening?
Doing great. Thank you so much for the invitation. It's the first time ever, really, right, G?
Yeah, it's the first time ever actually going on a YouTube channel, so this is exciting for us as well.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Yeah, nice. Okay. Well, before we get, so everybody out there, we are going to be asking some basic questions, but the main point of this really is we're just going to be talking about our to-read piles, which, if anybody out there is like me and Sharif, that's pretty much half of your collection. So we're not going to be going that long into it. We've just picked a few. As you can see, I am still moving house. So all of my pictures, all of my books are going to be just pictures, not physically with me. But until we get to that, G, tell us what it's like being an associate sales manager at Penguin Random House.
Oh, yeah. So I've came into the role in 2021. Previous to that, I was actually in academic publishing at Macmillan Learning, and so it's been really fun getting into the role. And part of what we do is, we service the direct market, of course, internationally. And Hector and I, we both cover all countries outside of the U.S. because we have a U.S. team that handles that, and outside of the U.K. because we do have sales reps who handle the U.K. And we also have sales reps in Canada as well. So it's been a lot of fun. Part of our role is we do also handle the bookstore market as well. And so I handle specifically the Caribbean, which has been a lot of fun because I get to travel to those islands too. I'm actually going to Bermuda next month to visit some bookstores as well. So yeah, it's just been, it's kind of surreal, right? Because you get to do this job and all you really do is talk about books and comics and to share your excitement for it for like all the retailers out there. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it sounds like a horrible job.
Such a challenge.
Yeah.
And Hector, what is it like being the senior sales manager at Penguin Random House?
The same thing, but older. That's why the senior. That's right. No, it's fun. I actually been. I used to work for Borders. You guys remember Borders? And I was buyer at Borders in Puerto Rico, and then Borders just before it disappeared. Somebody from Penguin who used to sell to me hired me, and then the merger happened, and it's been now what is it, 13 years since I've been at Penguin Random House. So I've done a lot of things. I handle sales into the book market in Latin America, all across. I've handled sales for US and both UK. but now, like G said, we're handling the direct market, and G, started in 2021. It's when we started with Marvel, so she started a few months before we went live, starting to sell into the direct market for Marvel. And but also, like G said, we usually in international we have more than one job. So I still do book sales into Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, and Mexico and Central America, and that's always so fun, obviously, and it's also takes some cool traveling. So it's always a challenge because it's like two hats, but it's also nice. And like he said, also we we get to read books and talk about books and visit and talk to people about books. And later we can talk a little bit, if you want, about the difference between bookstore people and comic book store people, because there's a lot of differences. Good things. It's just they're different.
Okay.
But it was kind of tough at the beginning because I come from so many years of dealing with bookstores. Although I'm a big comic book fan forever, but I never dealt with comic book stores until 2021. And then I do want to make one comment because to make sure you understand, we work for a publisher. We sell. We're in sales, but we're also big geeks. We love everything that we talk about, really, and more. And I just to give you an idea, just a short idea. I interviewed G, and I interviewed a bunch of people. But my first impression, she had a big standee of Superman in the background.
I still have him. He's just all
Yeah.
the way in the corner.
Yeah, you're gonna have to bring him back
I
at
have to
some
bring him
point.
back.
Yeah, and as soon as I connected, it's like, oh, this might be the right person, even before we started talking. So there you go.
My
That's
dad
who
is
we are.
actually my dad is a stamp collector, and so Superman had an anniversary year, like I think back in the 90s, early 90s, and they just delivered the standee to us, and I'm like, oh, I've been bringing the Superman standee with me wherever I move, so it's always in the room with me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You could never get rid of that.
Oh yeah, for sure. No.
Yeah.
So, what's it like the day-to-day job that you guys have? What would a normal daily what would a normal day look like for you guys?
You want to go first, G? You do
Yeah, I'll
more
go
than I
first.
do, so
So for me in particular, I'll do like newsletters and announcements and like working with our marketing team to get materials from publishers as well that we partner with to sort of communicate that information to retailers. So part of that is like the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
With sales, obviously, we're communicating with customers directly with if any issues arise or if they have any questions about any titles. I mean, Hector and I, we don't always have answers to these things, so we almost act like an in between the retailers and also the publishers. So we'll often go back and ask some questions if they have any specific questions about titles. And I mean, we have retailers that come to us. This happens more to what Hector was saying. There's differences between bookstores and direct market retailers, but I mean, bookstores in particular will often ask for like, what are your recommendations for? I'm like rattling off like for a particular topic. Let's say like we're looking for titles specifically for let's say like Jamaican authors, for instance, and then we'll pull lists and curate titles that customers would be interested in. So that just gives you a sense of what you do. And obviously, we have clients, publishers that will present their titles to us, and we'll have meetings to discuss some marketing plans, publicity that is going on so that we are aware, but we can also communicate that to retailers because, they're out there on the ground selling. So whatever we could do to help retailers who are like hand selling directly to the customers, that's what we do. So that's essentially like in a nutshell in the day-to-day what we do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like, because I've been on the other side of being a buyer, I can tell you this side, it's more of obviously helping the buyers with whatever they need and whatever they want. Of course, there's a lot of information that we have to share, and there's new information. Before we started recording, I mentioned like we get it sometimes 5 minutes before we have to share it, but it is a lot of that. But at the same time, well, most of the time, first of all, our customers know more than we do about what we sell, because a lot of them have been in the industry for a long, long time, longer than we have. But it is a lot about also sort of presenting. I mean, as a buyer and as a owner of a business, sometimes you have to deal with so much, and you have to deal not only with Penguin Random House but so many other distributors and publishers, that you kind of concentrate on what's in front of you. You get your catalogs and you look at what people are hyping for. So a lot of our job too is say, hey, by the way, there is this tiny title. The author might be from where you're at, or the topic might be good for you, or it's something that maybe you haven't noticed, but there's a lot of buzz on TikTok and other places, and you need to pay attention. So there's a lot of that too. That's a lot of our job, to make sure that there are not missed opportunities for our customers. And of course, there is also a lot of, like, whenever not everything goes up smoothly. So whenever there are issues, we have a whole team of customer service, of course, and all that. But it's our job to sort of, like you said, sort of be the person, the face of the company, and say, okay, we're going to help you. We're going to find out the solution. We're going to find the answers for your questions. And we do a lot of that. That's a big part of our day-to-day, of course. Yep.
Wow, that sounds
sounds busy.
that sounds like a lot. Yeah,
But it's
that
fun.
sounds really cool though.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay, so what would be the most positive aspects of your job, do you think, where you get to go home at the end of the day and you get to sit down, if at all, because I know that I certainly don't in my job most of the time, but do you ever get to go home and sit down and say to yourselves, yeah, I like what I contributed today? What's the best part of working there?
Working for me, working this job is my dream job. And I think through my life, I've been preparing for this job. I was born in 1970, so I was 70s, 80s, and 90s kid, teen. So my comic collection kind of started around there. And I I feel like I every job that I had, I kept preparing for something to do with comics and something to do with books, and then I got it, and I got to say I've been very, very lucky that I've been asked to do things that I love to do. So the most fun is dealing with the titles. Yeah. Like when I finish my day, there might be a lot of topics in my head from the day, but what it sticks in my mind is like, oh, we just had that conversation about those titles. That's so good. And it's so refreshing. And then, like any person who loves reading and collecting, I go on YouTube and start researching stuff of the titles that I've already worked with. But that is a big part for me, the titles, for sure.
Mhm. And for me, I mean, when I came from academic publishing, I did that for over 5 years. So I didn't think I would ever be here. So the fact that I am here just because I shifted, even though I was in publishing before, that shift to, I mean, textbooks are nice, but they're not graphic novels, they're not comics. So just shifting the types of books that I was selling, it's just like it's amazing because I never thought I would be here. But then when the opportunity presented itself, I had to go for it. I was like keeping my eye out because I knew about the announcement from Marvel. Everyone in the comics industry had heard that when PRH took on Marvel. So I was like, there has to be a job opening, right? But for me, over the years, I had one of those opportunities to get to meet some of these retailers. And it's different when you're on the phone with them or communicating through email, but being in their store is just a really awesome experience because you get to see how much they affect the community around them. And I got to do that a couple years ago. I just happened to be in Korea, South Korea at the time. And I visited one of the, I just stopped in and just, it just seeing the students that come in, game developers that would just play tabletop games right within the store. It's just like a really close-knit community. I just love that feeling, and to see retailers get to experience that on the day-to-day. I mean, I have my own LCS, so I do see that we do have a tight-knit community there. So it just feels nice because on the other end, I mean, we're on the publisher end. You just know that you're doing your best to help these retailers who are just trying their best to build a community of comics lovers within their region. So I just thought it's just so cool because we're remote, so we're behind the computer, but to get to see that, it's just it's really awesome to see.
Yeah.
Do any of the retailers come up to you and said, there are certain books that they'd like to constantly keep on the shelves? Stuff like evergreen books.
Yeah, that's one thing that we get all the time, right, G?
Yeah. So to give you some examples, and we distribute many different publishers, so this is just a small sampling of it. Now, it varies, right? Because some comic book stores are more game focused, or others have other types of focuses that they have. But generally, if I were to break it down by publisher, for Dark Horse, Berserk for sure, especially in Australia too, is the thing that people want, especially for manga. Hellboy as well. Let's see, with IDW, TMNT, Last Ronin, obviously that's been a huge bestseller. Everyone wants to have their hands on that. And some literary titles as well, especially for bookstores. So we have George Takei's They Called Us Enemy. From Pantheon, Mouse obviously is such an iconic story. Persepolis from Pantheon as well. Some other, if you talk about manga publishers, Attack on Titan from Kodansha, yeah, for sure. Silent Voice, Vinland Saga, Blue Lock has been huge lately, and especially if you've been to Comic-Cons recently, has been a huge presence for Kodansha. And that's just to name a few. Seven Seas, Tokyo Revengers, I love it. I don't know if you realize this, but there has been a bit of a trend for BL and Danmei titles. You'll notice this a lot with solicitations from manga publishers. One of the biggest ones for us right now is MXTX Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, which when that live action was going, I don't remember, I think it was 2019, 2018 when that live action came out in China. It blew up. Their streaming platform at the time, WeTV, Tencent is known locally, had 10 billion views just on their streaming platform alone. And we started publishing that physically. That was just one streaming platform. It doesn't even count YouTube or other streaming platforms. So all across internationally, that became huge. When we published that back in around when I started in 2021, everyone wanted to grab their hands on that because we had the comic adaptation as well as the web novel that got physically put out. So these are just some examples of titles. Obviously, Marvel and DC, they have a ton. DC, it's Watchmen, of course. Everyone wants Watchmen. We have an international edition as well that tends to be what people go after, which is basically we can only sell that specifically outside of the US. So we call it our International Export Edition. And then obviously Batman is huge. So Long Halloween, Killing Joke, Year One, like what you would normally think as titles that people would want to grab onto. For Marvel, it's like Ultimate Spider-Man by Bendis. We have Donny Cates' Venom, Miss Marvel by G. Willow Wilson, and Infinity Gauntlet by Starlin, and Runaways, Planet Hulk, like all of these titles, Marvels, these are the things that retailers are looking to always have on hand. So that was a really long rambling. We have a lot of publishers. So
we love long rambling. Don't worry. We love and so how does
sorry, well, go.
I was going to say, how does one stay on top of the trends? Like, I've got so many websites, so many YouTube channels, so much stuff that I think I'm on top of it all. But then G just mentions all of these titles that I'm not going to lie, I haven't even heard of those. And I'm like, how do you do that? And on top of that, not only how do you do it, but what advice could you give to people that do think they know everything, but then realize they don't? And where can they get that information from?
Well, you can email G if you need anything. But other than that, I was going to ask you though, because your faces were a little bit. Do you know what BL and Dame is?
Dame is?
No.
Yeah, you probably should have started with that, G.
Oh yeah.
Like,
I just rattle out.
Yeah. So go ahead and let's start with that, and then we'll come back to the question.
Yeah.
So the term danmei is a romantic relationship between males, right? Male characters in a story. So danmei in particular is a term where the titles are from coming out of China, for instance. BL is used more generally. So like you could refer to danmei as a BL. You could refer to like Korean titles, manhwa as
BL is boys love. That's
boys love. Yeah. The BL is short into boys love. You could also call it yaoi is another term from Japan that would indicate that too. So yeah.
Wow.
So it's just
yaoi is a mythological Australian like Bigfoot. Yeah. That's weird, yeah.
So there's a different trend in Australia for yaoi. Yeah, that's good.
What's very interesting is when you see these danmei coming out of China, there is web novels in particular have been very popular, especially these days. But even before then, especially in China, because they're dealing with censorship laws is a little bit, back then it was less restrictive than trying to get something physically published. So when you're talking about sort of bringing BL to the world, it was a lot easier trying to distribute the uncensored materials online versus getting it physically published. So it's been really interesting because with Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, the live action had a different name, Untamed. People were like, are they going to censor it? Are they going to shut it down? Is it going to get canceled? Eyes were all on it. There was censorship when that came out, but then when you have the actual source material, which is uncensored, that is very important for our world, right? To be able to read the material as it was intended. And so I don't know where I was going with this, but just to give you an idea of how big this universe is, there is differences between BL from China, from Korea, from Japan. There's just like different characteristics depending on which country you're looking at. It's just, obviously I'm such a huge fan, so
I was gonna say, if you ever want Dee to start talking, because he generally is very quiet, by the way, but if you want to get her to talk, just say BL and she'll just go.
I will go off.
He's really big on it. So, and it brings me to answering your question, Paul, about how do we keep up with all of this and the information. And like I said at the beginning, we're fans, like you guys are, like, you know, the people who watch your channel are, and we do have to know everything that we sell, and at least a little bit. but there are some specialties. And G and I, thank God, we complement each other a lot. So she's really big on some things, and we're both big on manga, manhwa, and all the different East Asian titles. But she's really into BL and into a lot of romance and other things. I am huge, and she will tell you, a huge isekai. I love, like, such a big fan of Alice in Wonderland and Wizard of Oz at the beginning, reading the books, that I think that translated into the isekai, into the manga era. But also, like, she's into omnis. I'm more into single issues, there's a lot of things where we connect, but also, like I said, we complement each other. But how do we keep up? We do get a lot of emails every day. Every publisher sends all their information about everything, because we also have to keep up on non-graphic books. We need to keep
Yeah.
up on the other stuff. But we have sales conferences and we have calls every month, and we talk to our colleagues. We have colleagues all around the world, and I think that the same thing happens. The same thing happens where there are colleagues in other parts where they're big on other things. Like we have. I'm gonna give a shout out to Hani in the Philippines. If you're watching this, I hope you are, because you're amazing. And every time we talk, we have a cell conference or a call. She has read every single book out there, and there's some
Yeah.
things that she likes more than others, but it's like G and I say it. It's like, how does she do it? And our other team members do it too. Like our European team too. They jump in and they talk about books. But honey, it's out there. She's like, oh my God, she reads manuscripts way before, months before the book comes out. So it's like it's amazing. But I think it's we were built for this kind of job. I think the prerequisite for working in a publisher, especially in sales, it's not only that you like books, but that you like to consume information about
Yeah.
books and comics and share it. That's what we do. And you know, when I went to school. My schooling is on sociology. It's in English. She worked as a teacher. I worked at many places like sales and buying and all that. So it kind of, again, we were being prepared. We were being sort of, it's our origin story. We were like from the beginning, they were being trained to become, the people who are going to represent Penguin Random House in the direct market. So I think that's where it comes from. Also, obviously, guys like you guys, things like that. I'm watching YouTube and going online all the time, looking at people like you that create content for us to kind of digest what's out there. And also, you guys do a great job of presenting things that are smaller that we might miss, like what I was talking about before that we do. You guys do a lot of that. I know that you guys do like highlight things that you like on Kickstarter, like what you have, what is it, Anna behind you and all that.
Yes.
So that I think is also a big part of how we keep up, because there's a lot of people like you that love talking about, what we read. So it's awesome. It's
And
great.
that's why doing that and going online and being in those communities, you get to see both, the issues that arise that we probably wouldn't have heard of unless we look at these like Facebook groups, for instance, or like
Yeah.
conversations from YouTube that like I watch, Hector watches as well. And so it's information that we gather just because we're fans and we like seek this information out. But like Hector was saying, we have a team of people behind us. We have colleagues in pretty much every part of the world. So if something is trending in Germany or like in the Philippines or in Singapore, like we would know about it. So and it's just great. It's just the interconnectedness of the people around us that helps us do our job. So
That's fascinating.
All right.
So you have your own YouTube channel. You can go. I'm sure there's probably an easier way to go than typing that out,
Yeah.
but it will be. The link will be in the description if you do want to check out G and Hector's own channel. You can also go to Instagram, where you can check out PRH International Comics. They also have their own Facebook at PRH International Comics. And last but not least, you can find them on Twitter, or X as it's called now, at PRH Intel Comics. So you have many different places and many different things that you can go check out yourselves. Going back to the evergreen that Sharif asked, what are some books that you personally would want to be evergreen, or you think should be?
Yeah, I'm gonna start because I think G has a list.
I'm ready.
She is very organized and she has to plan everything. I'm more like, yeah, let's do whatever. So I'm coming up with this answer right now. I there are a lot of, like I said, 90s, 80s, because I grew up with that. A lot of content there that is evergreen for me that I keep coming back to. Definitely, I love Batman. I love Spider-Man. We all grew up with them. I love Superman. But I think the story that really did it for me for Spider-Man is Kraven's Hunt. Kraven's Last Hunt. It's for me, and for me is the best villain out of all the gallery of Spider-Man villains. And that story really it kind of touched me somehow, and I don't know why, but it kind of introduced me to what it is to follow a villain, and once in a while like a villain, because you have to like a villain to make it more dramatic when they face off against the hero. And that was it for me. Also, the Batman, I was really big on the Bane storyline and the breaking of the back and all of that. But around that time, um, there was a Batman title that came out that was Shadow of the Bat, and I got to collect it from issue one. And the art and the stories in those, it kind of did the crossover with the Bats. What is it called? It's not Broken Back. I forget what the storyline is.
Nightfall?
Yeah, Nightfall. Thank you. But the stories are before and after that too, they were so well done, and the art was amazing. So for me, that is, and it's something that I feel at some point somebody should do an omni of Shadow of the Bat, because it feels like a separate kind of side story, and at the same time, Batman and Detective Comics around that time was very 90s, but that felt a little bit more classic. So those two for me are kind of the bigger ones. But also, like, going into the indies, Saga. And then Saga was another one. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, like, you know, but Saga was sort of that big comic book story that felt like Star Wars when I watched it for the first time, because I did watch it when it first came out. So for me, Saga is the other one that is so epic, so huge, that for me is seminal. It's like evergreen for me, and I have to come back to it, and I keep, it keeps coming more and more issues. Uh, but I go back every once in a while and start reading it because it's so good. And then I'm excited. I'm so excited about working with Boom now directly, because I'm a big fan of Something's Killing the Children. I'm a big fan of Tiny in general, but Something's Killing the Children does it the biggest for me.
So with Saga, how excited were you when the team announced that they were coming back and finishing off the second half of the whole story?
I mean, I think everybody who follows Saga we're waiting for that announcement. It has to come at some point. So when it happened, yeah, it was like tears of joy. Just like I can't wait. Yeah. It's I feel, and that's why I feel like it's one of those stories that it has its followers, and anybody can read it, and I think a lot of people that are not necessarily fans can read it, and I invite everybody to read it, even though it's not distributed by Penguin Random. Doesn't matter, it's amazing. It is, but it is a big it's sort of its own world, not just because it's literally its own universe, but it's because the fans, we know, we understand each other. And that was my first reaction, going online, looking at the comments, and everybody had their reactions to it. So to answer your questions, that's what I did. It's like, oh, so excited, I want to share it with the world, of Saga. So I went online and started doing that.
It was massive when it first came out. It was so big, and I love it. But I'm dying for that third hardcover.
Yeah.
When's that coming, man? Like,
I know.
fourth,
Oh,
sorry.
it's fourth. It is fourth.
hardcover.
Yeah.
I'm starting to
You're
forget what happened in the first three. It's been so long. But
That's why I had to go back. That's why I had to go
Yeah.
back and read again, because I was like, wait, I need to go back and get things straight. Yeah.
Well, personally, I had to pace myself because I got a ton of back backstories to read, catch up on. So with Saga, as soon as they said they're coming back, I told myself, all right, so I'm gonna hold off volume 2 and volume 3 until they've got a little bit more material, and then I start catching up. So
yeah,
I'm with Bo. I'm just waiting for the fourth volume to come out.
Yeah, and we're in the age of binge watching, so it's like it almost feels, and it's something that is like, it's binge worthy. Like once it's all complete, I think it's going to be, like we were saying, evergreen. It's going to be one of those things that people are going to be able to read it all the way through, and it's so smoothly. It's a story that runs so smoothly that it's you can read it over and over again and not get tired of it.
Yeah. And what about yourself, dude?
Yeah, for me, when I was thinking about this question, for some reason, young books for kids came into my mind, because it always amazes me when something impacts me as an adult, and I'm like, this was meant for kids, but why am I crying? It's like, I don't get it. So I came prepared because I was like, I need to show it off. But I got to meet Jin and Yang, so I have his.
You have to say the whole story. You kind of mentioned the tears, but you have to say the whole story, G.
There we go.
Yes. Oh, Superman smashes the clan.
Yeah.
Superman smashes the clan. So this is what I would want to be evergreen. So I was actually at I think New York Comic Con, and it's one of those things where they tell you not to line up, but you're like lurking, because you want to be like first in line. So I'm like lurking, and like other people were lurking. I'm like, are you lurking for the same reason I'm lurking? And it's great because like I was so like involved in talking to him that like this lady behind me was just like, I'll take a picture of you too. So it was such a great experience. And this story in particular, when I thought about evergreen, I was thinking about some impactful themes that I think everyone should read, regardless of whether or not you're a young reader. So just a little bit about this. I don't know if any of you have read this in particular.
I have known about it. I have not read it, nor do I have a copy, I'm sorry to say.
You really should.
Fortunately, I represent Aussieverse, so yes, I've read the collected edition. Yep.
And I would love a hardcover of this. I don't know if that would ever come, but that's something that I would love. But I understand the accessibility of having a trade paperback, so I chose this. So it's based on a 1940s radio play. It was impactful for me because it's about a Chinese family who moves into Metropolis. They get hate, racism, but it flashes to Superman's life, various points of his life, and how his experience is very much also an immigrant experience. The one scene in here that like really stuck to me is that Clark discovers like this device that's spewing out these weird voices, this alien language. It's a clue to his origins, but instead of like investigating further, he tosses it away in the water because he wants to be something other than foreign. He wants to be ordinary. And it reminds me back when I was younger and like my parents would be speaking to me in Korean and I would be like, oh, like, because my peers are going to make fun of me. Like, I'm embarrassed. And it's shameful to say now, because why was I ashamed of that? Like, this is part of my culture. Why should I ever be afraid to like have that language be out there. So like seeing that on the pages, seeing how Superman here has to fight that much harder to like portray himself as human, as not a threat. And then you have this like girl in the story who basically she's like being told to use an English name. She's being reminded to speak English instead of her native tongue. And she's getting so much hate thrown at her and her family that all she wants to do is run away from the city to escape it. But then like at the moment where like she feels the most down, it's such an impactful scene. She's been told, you know, we have to stay here and fight, and we have to make the city of tomorrow, Metropolis, a home. And the only way that we can do that is stay here and represent who we are and our experiences. So like in the story, she has a jacket that's like a red jacket, just like Superman has his cape, and they're both like battling it out and, you know, staying true to who they are. So it's just a beautiful story. It, again, made me sob. Actually, when I met Jean, my eyes actually started tearing up because I kept thinking about certain scenes in the book, and I'm like, I'm sorry. He like didn't know what to do. I'm like, I'm leaving, and I ran away. And I also, of course, I had to have the advanced reader's copy too, so I have an arc of it too, not just along with the final copy. This is how much of a fan I am.
I love your passion for that. That is so good to see.
There is another title that I do want to talk about too that I don't know if most people have read, The Magic Fish by Trung Lee Wen.
Oh, no, I don't know that one either.
Okay, so basically what's really cool about this, again, it's for young readers. There's 3 storylines. The one in red is told in the past. Yellow is told, or actually red is told in the present. Yellow is in the past, and the blue is represented by the fairy tale storyline. So it's basically this story of this boy and his mom. His mom is trying to learn English through fairy tales, so they read together. And so the boy and the mom, their storylines are told both in the past and the present timeline, but they're also reading these fairy tales, and those fairy tales are also being played out in comparison. So what's really nice is you'll see, like, based on the images, how like seamlessly like the imagined fairy tale is being merged into present reality, which is also being merged into past reality. So it's a very interesting way to present this story. And this is for middle grade young adults, but it's such a interesting way to present complex structure and of the storyline to a young like kid to grasp that concept. And I love that about this book. And this actually made me really think about, because it really focuses on language and how language can fail you, especially if you're talking to someone who's of a different generation, who has a different first language than you. And so it really focuses on the question of like, what do you do when you can't find the exact words to express yourself when language is not there? So the main character here is trying to come out as gay to his mom, but he doesn't know the Vietnamese word for gay. And I read a really fantastic article when this was first coming out, where they were saying that in Vietnamese, and in many other languages, not just in Vietnam, but in many Asian countries, there might not be terminology to express your identity, or if it does exist, it's either offensive or does not accurately reflect who you are. And so this book really goes into that. And you know how you see fairy tales like Cinderella and variations of it in like Europe and China in Egypt is so different, and how each culture will shape the fairy tale to their own needs. It happens here where the mother who's reading these fairy tales changes it just slightly because she doesn't have the right words to communicate her message of love to her son. So she changes the fairy tale just slightly to communicate that message to him. And so beautifully done with those 3 storylines being interwoven. So I just wanted to give a shout out because this is something that I would also want to be evergreen, that I would want everyone to like pay attention to. So I love it so much.
I love that that red, blue, and yeah, that's a fascinating way to be able to tell different timelines. That's really fascinating. I like that a lot.
There is one scene in the book because I have parents that don't live in the US, so I often talk to them on the phone, right? And there's a scene in the book where they're in the present day and it's red. And his mom is on the phone because she has visited back to her country, is darker red. But when the boy is talking on the other line, he's in faded red. So there's almost like this distance between the present timeline, which like I look at the scene, I'm like, that's true, because if you only have like 5 or 10 minutes to talk to your loved one, you know, things get lost in translation. You truncate your words. Experiences is like just a summary of what happened to you. There is just missed language in between vast distances that you're at. And the way that it's represented in this graphic novel is so beautifully done that I'm like, wow, when I saw this, I'm like, this is amazing. But the way that they utilize these colors in a way that influences the story, it's like amazing.
Wow. You're a deep person. I see that. I know Sharif has a few books that I'd never heard of in our halls that have palette colors like that, where it's not necessarily all in the one page, but it's quite fascinating how, for a person like myself, I don't pay that much attention to art. I'm more in it for the story. And because of that, because I've got bad eyesight or I read too fast, I can miss a few things. And sometimes it takes somebody like Sharif or yourself to turn around and go, no, slow down and actually look at the page and see what it is that you're actually reading. And because of that, sometimes it takes me a couple of times to read things to be able to appreciate the art when I've just read the story and trying to get to the end. But yeah, it is fascinating when people use those cues, and it's not just the story, but these different colors and different ways to present different timelines. I find that amazing. And judging by Sharif's camera going on and off, I think he's found something to show.
This is going to be part of our upcoming haul. Just picked this up. It's a 4 volume set by Matt Fraction. Hopefully I remember it correctly. It's got the similar theme to it. This is November. Please be right. Please be right. Yeah. So same muted colors, and the story tells about 4 different characters, but there is a similar theme that connects all of it together, and it all comes together in the fourth one. Sorry, it's still sealed. But if you want to find out a little bit more, next week we should be recording this and then jump back onto the channel and find out.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be watching.
So 2 more things we'll go into before we take a look at the books, and that is, one, you mentioned the difference between the book people and the comic book people. Yeah. So what did you mean by that, Hector?
I know, I opened myself up to no, yeah. So, you know, there are different businesses, of course.
Yeah.
And it was the first thing that came to mind when we started talking about working with comic book stores, because we were starting to distribute to the direct market, was we need to understand that. And one thing you got to say, I got to tell you, I talk about Penguin Random House, and I say great things about Penguin Random House because I work here, but also because I love the company and I love both Penguin and Random House before the merger as a consumer. And I love it even more because they think about these little things that are very important. And that was one of the big conversations we had from the beginning, that we had to be aware that the needs of comic book stores is different to the needs of the bookstores.
Yeah.
How are they different? Uh, it's the difference of the medium. So books tend to be one creator most of the time. Uh, Also, they are very varied topics, but they have their own specific genres and are very, very set on them most of the time, Uh, and so that's how people deal with it. And at the same time, because of that, the catalog, you don't have very rarely you have the same characters showing up on different stories. So you have to think about that. Number one. Number two, the bookstores, uh, their needs are not as immediate. They're not their needs. I'm not going to say that because new releases are still new releases, and the fans are going to want to get them on day one. But you know, it's usually the bigger releases that the bookstores are like, no, no, we need this right on the Tuesday before the Tuesday goes on sale. The big difference with the direct market is like we have that every single week with most titles.
Yeah.
So right there is a big, big difference. There was also everything about that is very different. The shipping has to be different. The timing of when from print to warehouse to shipping is different. There's also the way that everything is marketed, and everything is how we know if something is going to sell or not. We know for sure in the direct market more or less because we have the FOC system. So people, you have to pre-order because if you don't pre-order, you might not get it,
Mhm.
and that's it, final. In the book industry, it's more of no, no, we're gonna keep pumping it out as long as people want to read it. We'll keep it out there. And so the needs are very different. Personally, I'm gonna might get in trouble with booksellers,
Personally.
but well, it, yeah, I'm not gonna involve G. G. If you wanna agree with me, it's fine. If not, I feel like the comic book people are more easygoing, even though they're more detail about what they want. And
Wow.
they really like we get really long emails about what they want, but they're more easygoing. And sometimes it surprises me because I've worked at bookstores and I'm like, really? You're okay with it? Okay. If
Yeah.
you're okay
I
with
wouldn't
it,
have
I'm
believed that.
fine. If you can wait, I'm okay. But in the book industry, there's a little bit more tense. And I don't know. It's also because whenever with comic books, you do have huge releases and things that can make and break your sales. There are titles. There are those titles. If you miss them, you're gonna have a bad month. But in the book business, it's more like once a year, twice a year, three times a year, you'll have a book that will make or break. You're still gonna have good books and good sales, and you can balance it out. But there's could be that one book this year. Oh my God! And if we run out, or if we undersell, and that happens a lot, and especially nowadays in all paper industry, it's a reality that we have to live with
Mm.
because paper shortages, shipping, it's tougher, it's more expensive. So there is that tense. It's more tense usually um, on a weekly basis with the comic book stores. With the bookstores, it's more of a once, twice a year kind of thing. But in general, I gotta say because I worked in other industries, I worked in clothing stores and restaurants and hotels. I wouldn't change the print and the comic and booking industry for anything. The customers, because we're so passionate and we it's like I said, I'm Puerto Rican, and when I go to another country, I see another Puerto Rican and I get excited That's how we in the industry are. It's like, oh my God, you read comics? What? Tell me what you like. I mean, I mentioned Saga, and you got your guys' eyes went like that. It's just like that's how we are, and I love that about the industry, and that it's a big similarity you see in both book and because it's all about being passionate about the content. You know,
Yeah.
it's all good. I hope I didn't get in too much trouble out there.
Speaking
Well,
of
we have
content, can I just shift to formats? Paper or
Sure.
digital?
No paper. I don't have anything against digital, and I read digital every once in a while, and then every once in a while we go into the digital. I go into the digital apps, but I like holding the paper. I you know one I remember when the whole digital thing happened for for books. I had gone through with Borders through the digital change for music and DVD Blu-rays. So we saw how that shrunk the business so much, and it made a lot of sense. When we started happening for books, uh, there was somebody, I forget who it was, but it's a CEO or president of one of the publishers that said that physical books, never going to go away because there's something intimate that you have with a physical copy with paper. It's
yeah.
not only having it in your hand and touching it, but it's also turning the pages, but physically doing that motion, the smell. And they were talking about with kids' books, especially, they were seeing how kids' books were still going to be surviving very easily because kids consider it in their head. You give them an iPad and you put a book on an iPad, but yeah, but that's an iPad. And then you give them a book, that's a different toy. So it's always going to be that differentiation. It's never going to be anything like you can't digitize that experience, is what I'm saying.
Like I remember where I bought the book. It's such a
Yeah.
visceral
Yeah.
experience
Mhm.
because you were there, you physically touched it, you were at that location, right? I understand the need for ebooks coming from the educational space because there's accessibility tools that is useful for like kids or for adults, like translations, for instance. Making the text bigger so that you could read it more easily. Even audiobooks, for instance, like it's sometimes easier for people to consume information that way, or for accessibility needs, you can't see and you need to be able to receive that information in a different way. So I understand the necessities and the need for the ebook. And for the digital industry, but also like when you think about like webtoons, you can read that for free online or like watch some ads to get some coins, but people still go out to buy the physical edition. They want to support their creators, the artists, the writers, and there's just something to be said about having it in hand and just like to curate your own collection in your room. There's just like nothing that could replace that. It's just a thing. It's for the love of the hobby. This is something that like I could never get rid of. So
Yeah.
Like you can't smell a digital book.
Yeah.
no.
No, I say that, but I actually read everything new digital, and the reason why is simply because I read so much that it's so expensive here in Australia. I'll show you the prices after we record, and you'll be shocked at what books go for here. That for us to be able to afford the collected editions room and be able to keep up, it's a hell of a feat. So I read everything digitally new, but then I'm buying all the new omnibuses and I'm buying all the new hardcovers as well. The other thing I like about digital is when you've got bad eyesight and you don't really pay that much attention to art, like I said before, it goes panel to panel and you don't miss anything. So that's good for people like me, but it'll certainly never replace physical books. Physical books are the bomb. So I don't know about you, Sharif, but I've got one last question before we go into the books, and that is, you mentioned Boom Studios. We had the founder of Boom on our show about a month or two ago, Ross Ritchie. Really nice guy. Really, really nice guy. How have you guys feeling about that? What's going to change for you guys, if anything?
More books to sell, more comic books to sell. Really, no, we're really excited. Like I said, I'm already a big fan of not just Something's Killing the Children, but some of the other, like, the Circle, the New York, Ken Reeves, also Grimm, because I'm a big Stephanie Phillips fan, and it's just adding more to our catalog. um, I love, yeah, I'm glad that you guys bring it up, because it's going to be a big part of us. It's
Mm.
like when we started with Marvel, there was a lot of questions. It's the first time ever that Penguin Random House started. Uh, we had been selling, graphic novels and collected editions, but we had never sold, the floppies, the single issues.
Yeah.
And we didn't know if that was going to be it, and nothing else. And then IDW, Dark Horse came aboard, and now having Boom Studios, it's I don't have any other words than say than exciting. It's very, very exciting. I'm glad. I know that our customers for sure are very happy about it. That they can, combine it with everything else that they're buying from us. Um, and we we already had one call when they're presenting, and then, like I said before, I love those calls where they're presenting the books, even though I know what's coming. I don't care. I love it, and it's having thinking about that every month. Again, I'm going to be adding that to my list of things that I need to study for. That's great. I love it.
Yeah, I really do love it too. Talking about that, we do these catalog meetings where we speak directly with the publisher. Sometimes their editors will join on calls. So like seeing them excited about these titles, it just like makes it easier for us. It's like not work. It's just having this conversation with people. When I first heard about Boom Studios, I immediately thought of my favorites like Giant Days, John Allison. I had to be part of that Kickstarter, right? that was it last year.
Yeah.
I was waiting like so long for that. But then I was thinking about Fence by C.S. Picot. I don't know if you've read that. I love Fence. And then Irredeemable as well. I have the Premiere collections behind me
Sharif got
somewhere.
that Kickstarter. I'm so jealous.
Yeah. So all of these cool titles, and then like I'm excited for the stuff that I haven't read, like Peter Milligan. I have not read it in single issues, but Profane is coming out in softcover in April. And when I heard about the
Now, see,
premise,
now he's gonna make me excited.
yes, I have to read that. I haven't read that yet.
I did. It's so good.
So I'm so excited for that. There's this new title. We're gonna have it at issue number 3 on FOC, but I do want to go back and read that. It's Bronze Faces. I don't know if you ever heard of that one from
No,
Boom.
I don't think so. Have you, Sharif?
No.
No.
So I got excited because on the US team, we have a director who just like was so invested in it that she made me interested in it. So basically, it's like a heist story where they steal Benin bronzes back from the British Museum, and she talked about the history of it, which I wasn't familiar with. So Benin bronzes are these sculptures, like bronze sculptures, masks, and ornaments that came from Benin City, which is basically modern day Nigeria. And at the time, the British Empire had colonized and taken over. So obviously, the British Museum has a large collection of it because they took the artifacts with them. And so the premise is basically taking them back from taking it back from the colonizers. So it's such an interesting premise, and I'm like, oh, so these are the things where like I just hearing the excitement from other colleagues and be like, oh, I've never read this, so I want to go back and read it too. Blast Boy is another one that I'm interested in. It's the Peter Pan who like finally grows up, and you get to see like what his life is like as an adult. So we'll have that at issue 2 on FOC. So it's like all of these titles I'm like so excited to be reading now that we have more. It has diversified our list, which is like always great.
Oh,
So
wow. We just saw that title in our last FOC and we didn't know what it was. We didn't click on it. And now that you've told me what it is, I want to read it. That sounds great. A little bit like Hook.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's go into the books. But before we do, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, Comic Bookaroo, Australia's #1 online comic book store.
Comic Bookaroo, proud sponsors of Aussieverse for all your comic book needs. Graphic novels, hardcovers, omnibuses, single issues. Don't forget to pre-order every Sunday at Comic Bookaroo.
Comic Bookaroo, they have their own builder box option. That means you can buy your books now and get them sent later. They don't forget, with every single issue as well, you get a free bag, board, and like I just said, pay for shipping later. That is a great thing that Comic Bookaroo do. Now, moving on to the books. Do you want to go one of you guys, one of our guys, one of you guys, one of our guys? I reckon that'd be a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Which one of you two want to go first?
You guys pick who goes first.
Okay, well, Hector, seeing as you said that, it's going to be yourself.
No. Well, you know what? We were talking about Evergreen, and my first pick, it's an Evergreen title. It's Daredevil, Born Again. This is the Marvel Premiere Collection that they just started putting out. Obviously, Frank Miller, David Mazzucchelli. Goodness. Of course, there's a series of the same name coming out, Disney Plus. Not really have to do much with the story of this one, but like I also said before, I started reading comics 80s, 90s, so this is one of the big ones for me. Daredevil in general, but this story, because it's, coming from Puerto Rico, every Catholic primarily country. My family was Catholic, me growing up, so there's a lot of that, but it's not preachy, but it does take the good values of Christianity and kind of puts them in display, because Matt Murdock has always been very open about how he's Catholic and how his faith, sort of helps him. And this story, it is, it's. I didn't realize what I was reading until later. I didn't realize how much was in it, like the fact that it really is the 14 Stations of the Cross, and how not just Matt Murdock, but Bogey Nelson and obviously Karen Page and Ben Ulrich, they kind of go through that whole arc of sort of suffering and accepting what's happening to them, and going all the way down to the bottom to kind of rise up at the end. It is, like I said, seminal. Like, everybody must read this. But I also wanted to talk about, I have to do the sales pitch, guys, of course. The Premiere series, because I do like the Premiere collection, because they not only their smaller size is good, because I think we need to start trying to get more readers. We need to start getting people who are not necessarily collectors start reading more comics. I love that we're getting a lot of movies about this content, but I think we need to also get more non-comic book readers. And this is what this is all about, really. And this one in particular is not just the full story, but I don't know if you guys realize this has sketches. Sorry, the cover.
Cool.
It has sketches from Mazzucchelli's, original sketches, and it has the full Frank Miller script with notes and everything. So this is amazing. Yeah. And then there's also the Black Panther, A Nation Under Our Feet, that came out. There's going to be Winter Soldiers coming out in this collection. Fantastic Four, Solve Everything. Civil War is coming later. Old Man Logan is coming later. Hawkeye, The Mad Fraction is coming later. So it's going to be a very cool collection to have. And like I said, for us who collect and, we love very nice editions, it might be a little bit simple, but it's still kind of nice. But also, this is the kind of thing that I want to give to my nieces as a present. I'm like, listen, you need to start into comments. Come on. You got to pay for my, help me pay for my bills. But also, if you want to get somebody into comics, this is the way to do it. To become, not just read the story, but become a fan with the sketches and the script and all that. So that's my first pick.
Plus, it's going to look good on the shelves if you put them side by side. Yeah, because it's going to all match.
Nice.
That was a good sales pitch. I really liked that. I really did. It's you can't argue with that at all, because one of the arguments that people have with being an omnibus collector.
That's why I'm the senior sales manager, man. That's why I got the title.
Okay. So we're doing one each, or are we going to do a few each? What do you want to do?
Oh, you want to do whatever you want to do.
Keep going.
Keep going. Oh, okay. So next up, Grendel, and this is Grendel Devil's Crucible Defiance. And this one hasn't come out yet. So one of the perks of working at Grendel House. So I mean, you guys should know who Grendel is, and Mac Wagner, and again, another thing from the '80s that I found and followed from the beginning. And Grendel is such a big story because it's not one character. It's sort of Grendel really is the idea of vengeance and violence and that kind of thing. And in this one, Grendel Prime comes back to Earth and finds out that the Grendel clan and Grendels are forbidden. And I want to find the first picture and he comes to find out that it's illegal, and if they find you, they're gonna kill you. And the Dracula, sort of the vampire, clans are out to get all the Grendels, and it's sort of a dystopian, futuristic story. It's 500 years, from the previous story. And I gotta be careful. There's a lot of Matt Fraction and Grendel, so it's gonna be a lot of adult stuff in there for the kids. I'm sorry. And it's cool that Matt is writing, illustrating, but then got his son to Brennan Wagner to do the colors, and they complement each other so well. This is collecting 4 issues that came out last year, and this is part 1 of 3. So of course this one is Defiance, and then later this year it's going to be Sedition, and next year around October at the same time it's going to be Necrotic and Single Issues, and then in the spring we'll get the Collected. And it's cool because Matt Fraction coming back to Grendel, but at the same time he's doing all this vampire stuff at the same time that he's doing Dracula the Impaler with Kelly Jones on the other side. So like I said, it's big. If you haven't read Grendel before, I highly recommend it. It's a huge world. It's very complicated. It's even deeper than what Saga is or something like that. It has a lot of twists and turns, and like I said, there isn't one main character. They change throughout time, but it's very tragic. It's so tragic all the time, always. So yeah, but there you go. And it's very, very adult, by the way. So there you go. That's my second pick.
So with volume 1 collects issue 1 to 4, and then you said that there'll be volume 2 and volume 3.
Yeah, so that I got from Matt Fraction himself. He wrote it as a 12 issue, and then it got split into 4 different miniseries. That's what it's happening.
So can we safely say that once volume 3 comes out, we'll be expecting a deluxe of all 12?
I'll put it in a word, but I don't know if that's going to make me, listen to me. But yeah, who knows? Those
Sharif's
are
all
one of
about
those questions that you would think we would know, but we don't know. So
We're
I'm
like the
not
last people to know.
sure. You might find out before I do.
Yeah, you probably.
That's
But
cool, man.
but it'd be cool to have it all together. Yes.
The only
I
Grendel
am-
I've ever read is the crossover with Batman.
Yeah, which I have. I have those two. There were two because there was one
Yeah.
DC, one Dark Horse, and I have those two. But yeah, but you should if you haven't read the uh, original Grendel. It's so good and it's so the Dark
Did-
Horse has these omnis of the
Yeah.
stories. So that volume one, it's amazing. So good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any more, Hector?
One more. We
Beautiful.
have to do a little bit of manga, and this is
Go,
Losers
loser.
Ranger number 12 because it's upcoming in March. But I want to recommend the whole series. This is a sleeper title. This is from Kodansha. It's not what you think from the title or from the first two lines of the premise. And the premise is the world is attacked by aliens, and these rangers, well, they call them really the divine dragon keepers. But they're rangers. There's a red, a blue, a green, a yellow, and a pink, I think. And then they are the defenders of the earth. And the aliens attacked 13 years ago, and they are still fighting. And every Sunday, a new monster comes down from their ship, which is hovering over Earth, into a coliseum very conveniently and fights the Rangers, and the Rangers always win. They always win, of course. But really, what's happening is that a year into the invasion, the aliens got defeated, but people don't know, and the Rangers have kept it secret, and they destroyed sort of the big bosses called executives, and they kept all the foot soldiers. And the foot soldiers are immortal, but they're very, very weak. So when you destroy them, they turn into dust, and that dust goes back into the ship, and they regenerate. And also, they're shapeshifters, so they can shapeshift into a bigger monster for the Rangers to fight. And the Rangers make them say, "Hey, you gotta keep doing this, so we can keep up the love coming, getting the love from the public." Because even though they're immortal, there are these weapons, specific divine dragon tools that the Rangers have that can actually kill you forever. And the foot soldiers, they don't have names, they have numbers and letters. And Foot Soldier D is really the main character of this book. And one day he says, "I had enough. I'm gonna play." He's really good at shape shifting. He's like the best out of the group, and he shapeshifts into this monster. But I'm really gonna go for it. I'm gonna try to kill the Rangers, and he fails. And after he fails, they keep him alive. But he's like, I can't take it. I'm gonna turn into a human. I'm gonna go into Ranger Academy because the Rangers on top, they have this academy, and they have all these cadets that are training, and they're sort of like their foot soldiers, but also to sort of police the streets and eventually maybe find one that will substitute them when they retire. And then he says, "I'm going to infiltrate. I'm going to try to kill the Rangers from inside." And again, not what you think, because there's all these twists and turns, and there are these secrets from the Rangers, but also from the aliens that he starts finding out. And then the recruits, the cadets, there's a couple of them, two of them, that start helping him to find out that he's an alien, but they start helping him out in his mission to try to destroy the Rangers. One of them, she's just this crazy woman, and you don't know why she wants to destroy the Rangers, but she's very crazy. And then there's this other guy who just is very just, and he knows what the Rangers are doing, and it's wrong. So he's gonna help this alien destroy the Rangers for that reason. The characters are amazing. The whole story, really, most of it is about him trying to stay alive, and so people don't, the Rangers don't discover who he is. and don't kill him for real. The Rangers themselves are like the Rangers, the Power Rangers, and all those teams, but also a little bit like the Justice League. Red Ranger is like a Superman, but it's like an evil Superman. There's the blue one. It's like Batman. He has scars on his face, and it's like very broody and dark. There's a woman one that is like the pink one that's like a Wonder Woman. The green one is a little bit like Green Lantern, and the yellow one is like Flash. It's like the funny one. It is amazing. Like I said, it's a sleeper series. There was already a season 1 anime came out last year, and it's really good. But the manga is so good. There's so much detail into it. And the kicker is that Negi Herba, the creator of this, his previous series was Quintessential Quintuplets, which is a romance manga, very light, nothing compared to this. But rumor is that this is the story that he always wanted to tell, and here it is. So there you go. If you really want to get into manga and you like superheroes and you like Power Rangers, but also like mystery, suspense, this is it for you guys.
Fantastic.
And that's it for
Thanks
me.
for sharing.
Yeah. Cool. Right. So I'm gonna start off with DC. This particular series is collected in 2 hardcovers, and it is a blast from the past. I grew up watching the show. It is Super Friends,
Yeah.
Saturday morning comics. So, like I said, the art style is based on the cartoon series, and you can expect all. And you can expect all the characters that were featured on that show. So this is gonna be there you go. Zen and whoever the twin is. It is gonna be hopefully a really fun read for me. Lots of nostalgia here. But what else can I say? I'm just waiting for Aquaman to talk with fish, and that's it.
Yeah. And the rings coming out of his head at his yeah. G is completely lost right now. Sorry. You weren't even born when this came out.
Okay, so my next book in my to read pile is from Dark Horse. This is a fairly recent release. This deluxe collects the 2 series that have been out for a while. I think one or maybe both of them are out of print. But this is Sergio Aragon's Louder Than Words and Actions Speak. Don't let the thickness deceive you, because I don't think there will be any text for you to read. So when you say graphic novel, this is purely graphic. No words for the novel part, except for the titles. Easy read, fun, very very light and very lighthearted.
I think Sharif, you and I think we had almost the same childhood so far. Super cute.
Pretty close. So you've mentioned Mad Fraction with Grendel. I have this book for quite a while now. It's been sitting on my shelf, sadly collecting dust on the top. But it is Hawkeye by Fraction and Aha. I have watched the Marvel series.
Hang on. You haven't read this yet?
No, I have. I have watched the series, so I am wondering how closely that series would be with this one.
Oh, The book is so much better, man. You've got to read it.
And there's so many differences. It's only a few iconic things really that are the same. The story in general, the summary, but there's so much story that was not in the show. There's so much more.
And it's one of those things that I know that it's it's always said that the book, the primary source material is always going to be much better than how the adaptation on screen would be. So I'm really hoping that this would be it.
It is.
I agree with that statement. Yes, definitely.
Okay, so one last one from me from IDW. This is a bit of left field. It's zombie versus robots. So it's a weird one. I picked it up. I picked this up a few months ago. I've never heard of this. I think I watched a book review from some channel, and I don't know, the art is, I don't, it's just, sketchy, and you don't really see the kind of colors that pop like modern comics do. Fairly muted, but yeah, this is something that like both I get books that are not really mainstream, so I try to vary my reading palette just a little bit.
Who do you want to win? The zombies or the robots?
The
readers, because they're going to be the big winners. And that's my shot to be read, pal.
It's beautiful.
Okay, so I'm gonna start off with a manga title from Kodansha. This is Dogs and Punching Bags. So this is, I love the title. It's such a striking cover as well. So this is the creator Kaori Ozaki, who is also the creator of The God's Lie and Mermaid Prince, which is both like very, very well-known titles. But this one is about Nichiko, who returns to her hometown on this remote island. There's like only one convenience store. It's funny because the residents are like, it's remote, but we at least have one convenience store. Don't look down upon us. But she has a strained relationship with her father, whose alcoholism tore their family apart. So she's returning back to the remote island so that she can care for him before he dies, because he's basically on his deathbed. And so it's when you first encounter her, it's a very transactional duty, and it's just like day to day, I'm just getting things done. I don't really care for this man. And she is basically there to watch him die. And basically her indifference is what really struck me. I already started reading this. So I couldn't like hold it in, and I started reading this. So she has this very indifferent, like almost unemotional personality, in stark contrast to this other character on the back, whose name is Timaki, who is opposite in almost every way. Like, he wears his heart on his sleeve. His emotions are visible. He's unashamedly emotional, and he'll like, you could tell what's happening. Like, he just shows it and presents it so easily. And what's interesting though is he has this obsessive need to help not only her but everyone around him, to the point where it's detrimental to him. Like, it's just, he's just doing too much, and people are like wondering, why is he doing this? Like, you don't really know until you start reading further. And so you realize with his personality, she's just forced to kind of face her past, because his obsessive need to like help others is because he's trying to compensate for past mistakes that he can't fix. So he's trying to fix everything else around him to make him feel better. And so it forces her to look at her life. And I've actually discussed this with a friend, because she's going through a lot too. And we were talking about like our past mistakes not everybody it's not always happy, when you go through your journey in life. And the main character realizes, like, even though she was at the darkest moment in her life, when you reflect back on it, at that time, it was needed for her. That experience was necessary for her because it kept her living, even though those people around her was not good for her. And despite the like grim and sort of melancholic theme of this story, it's very optimistic because it just basically tells you to like live in the moment. Whenever things feel right, when the people around you seem like the right people, maybe you should just trust yourself and take that risk, because good can come out of it. It's better than, holding back, being alone and isolated. It's just such an uplifting title. The way that I said I started reading it, but I finished reading it already. But the way that I know this is like to be read, but I couldn't help myself when like this came. I'm like, I have to read this all the way through. But it ended on such like it's like a punch in the gut, because I was like, this is such a good read. I was already talking about this with my friends. I just like it just left me in a place where it just reminded me to like appreciate the journey that I've been on, even with the past mistakes you have made. So this is great. I had to highlight this one. And
is that a one and done, or is it part of a series?
One and done. So which is great, because for any new reader, you just need to get this one volume. So
Sharif goes and adds to cart.
Yeah.
No, I just added a fish story. Was that fish story to the cart?
Mermaid Prince?
Oh. No, the fish, the one that you reviewed.
Oh, the magic fish.
Magic fish, yeah.
But yeah, you should definitely definitely read that one. It's excellent. So this one coming out of PRH Viking. This is Cassie and the House of Memories. I was actually drawn to this because of the art. And I wanted to pick it up because of that. I just wanted to show you the first couple of pages. What I found interesting is what you'll notice is there's a lot of blank space in the beginning. And the premise of this is you have a granddaughter who loves telling stories and playing games with her grandfather, but she starts to notice that he loses track of their conversation. When they're playing hide and seek, he forgets that they're playing hide and seek. And so what is really beautiful about this is that as an optimistic girl, she's like, it's okay that my grandfather forgets, because all I have to do is try to make him remember. And what is so beautiful about this is when she's trying to get him to remember, the background starts to fill up. She's putting the pieces, setting the scene. The landscape becomes filled with art. And I'm like, it's only 3 pages in. How am I this affected already? It's so stunning the way that it starts. So basically, she goes, like, she plays at the back of the house. She starts playing with her grandfather. It's like, let's play a game. But she ends up losing him because he like wanders into the forest or the woods behind their house. And so it's a story about her trying to like search for him. Like, she's like distracted by the bubbles. And then she wanders into the woods, and you see this beautiful, like dreamlike scenery. It's such gorgeous art in this one. Yeah. And basically what this does is she finds objects, and you don't realize till later that the objects are sort of like a time travel portal, and those objects are like key moments in her grandfather's life. So she goes back in time to when those objects were first present, and she starts discovering more about her grandfather's story through these objects. What's very interesting is at the back there is like notes, because this is based on the creator Dean Stewart's own life, because his father has dementia, and he was struck by the experiences of his grandfather, or not his grandfather, his dad, remembering things out of sequence by the objects that he touches. And he just wonders what a story would be at the time, like his partner was pregnant, so his daughter had never met her grandfather at the time. So he just imagined, what would it be like if my daughter met my dad? What would that scenario be? And so this is that story. It's so beautifully done. The way that it's such a unique perspective, because you never really get to see a young child getting to experience what it's like for a loved one going through dementia. There's just this childlike innocence of like, let me just try to like understand, help. I'm just going to try to jog his memory. And just seeing that perspective in the story is just such a unique perspective. So this is one of the titles that is on my list.
Wow, that sounds amazing, that one.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And then on a completely different topic, I had to, of course, include a BL, Boys Love. And this is called My Beautiful Man, Volume 1. If you didn't know, actually, last month, we started distributing with Tokyo Pop, which is great because more titles to be selling. And Love is one of their lines. And so if you're a fan of shoujo, josei, boys love, girls love titles, I would definitely recommend checking out this Love product line. So this one, there is a Japanese live action adaptation that came out. I had watched that first. So that got me interested in picking this up because I wanted to see the differences between the adaptation versus, this is the comic that I'm holding in my hands, or the manga, but there's also the original, which is a light novel, which is also what I want to read as well. So basically, when this was first airing, it was perhaps one of the most unique BLs I was watching at that time because of the subject matter. So we have this main character who is basically so self-depreciating, doesn't have any confidence in himself. He gets bullied mostly because he has a stutter and his classmates make fun of him for it. And so you have this like, and his stutter worsens with anxiety, and if he's forced to speak in class, it makes it worse. He's basically at the bottom of the social pyramid. And yet, despite his like low self-confidence, this beautiful man walks in as this beautiful student walks into his classroom because they're both students at school, and he's like, wow, he's so bold in his obsessiveness with this man or this guy that he encounters, and he almost treats him like he is a god, that like he's untouchable. He's just like, if he could, he would create an altar with a photo of this man's face at the altar. What I find very interesting is that Hira, who's the main character, who's the low on the social totem pole, he's bullied by everyone, including this guy that he admires. But for some reason, this guy is helping him out because he's like, only I can bully you. He deflects other bullies because like, I'm the head bully. You can't touch him. Only I can bully Hira. Wow. So like, he almost treats him like, wow, he orders me around. He makes me do errands. I have to buy snacks for everyone, but I love it because he's beautiful. And he's actually kind of helping me out because like, I don't have to really deal with any other bullies anymore. It's just like you. So it's such like a weird, like his obsessiveness is like kind of borderline creepy, but it's also very endearing. And it just brings me joy to read to like the live action brought me joy. I started reading, I'm like, I'm not finished, but like there's more to this than I didn't anticipate, because obviously the source material has more material than an adaptation would have. But absolutely love it, recommend it for any BL fans, and yeah, My Beautiful Man.
Fantastic.
And
just based on those books that you've shared, I would like to see your library.
It's so chaotic. Like I think I was looking at Beau's, you had a library tour, the updated one before your move. And I was like, that is well organized, because for me, I don't even know what to do because I have like very weird topics. So I'm like, where do I even put it? And at some point I gave up and I try to put publishers together just for my own sake. And I'm like, I'm just going to just throw the publishers together and be done with it.
I think the only two things that make sense is either publishers or alphabetical order, or I guess the size of the formats, like or your manga or your omnibuses, but it's your library. You do what you want.
Well,
and publishers make it easy because like if you have certain product lines, the trim size like tend to match. So I'm like, oh, I guess I'll do it by publisher because that kind of makes sense for me. But it gets dicey with the different sizes.
Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for sharing.
Yes.
Now, I feel a little boring compared to you guys. I do have a lot here because I wasn't sure how much we were going to share. So I'm just going to go through it really, really quickly. But all of these I haven't read because that's what I thought we were doing. And you've all lied to me. And you've just...
Well...
Anyway, so I'm going to start with my childhood hero, my childhood icon, somebody that I was absolutely obsessed with as a little kid, and that was Astro Boy.
Osamu Tezuka, the god.
Yeah. So it really upsets me that they've only ever released these in these small, chunky sized books that they call omnibuses. But I would die for hardcover versions of these, big hardcover omnibuses. And to this day, I've only got the first 3 Astro Boy omnibuses, and I think there's like at least 6 or 7. So I need to be getting the rest of them. I was a diehard fan of the show when I was a kid, so I can't wait to read the actual comics. Moving on from Astro Boy,
before that. So if anyone really wants to see how big of a Astro Boy fan Bo is, go on to our channel, look for the video where he's got the Astro Boy boots on.
I gotta find that.
Yeah.
Definitely.
If you can link that.
Yeah.
Timestamp.
Sharif. Yeah.
More viewership for the channel. Next book.
I've been telling my partner that I want Astro Boy boots for so long, and she finally bought them for me. And I was so excited when I did it. I put them on straight away and did a little dance and a song, and she recorded it. So, thank you very much for that, Sharif. Moving on, we have the new series, which is Team Phoenix, which is based on all the characters that Tezuka created. It is set, all of his characters are in one world. And I haven't read it yet. I've got all 5 books, but I've been told it's very good. And anything with Astro Boy, I'm going to read.
Yeah.
The next one is Atom. This is a book series that I believe has about 12 volumes or so. I've got about the first 5 or 6, and this is a prequel to Astro Boy. So I can't wait to read all of that as well.
I see a theme here, Bo. Is there anything? Are you going to share anything non-Astro Boy related with us?
Yes, I am. Going over to these ones, we have
there you go.
An American Astro Boy. Okay.
So I've never read Transformers. I used to love the cartoon, and everybody was telling me how great the IDW collections were, but they were so out of print. I spent way too much money, and I got the first 8 volumes, which is phase 1. So I'm hoping I hate it, and then I don't need to get phase 2. But that probably won't happen, and I'll probably end up needing to spend more money. But anyway, Transformers, need to read all of that. Moving on to Dark Horse. I got volume 2 of this for a very cheap price. Never heard of it. Didn't even know it existed. Got it for really, really cheap. Sharif ended up picking me up volume 1 for really cheap as well. And that is Kieran Gillen's Leaving Megapolis. Sorry, Gail Simone, not
Gail Simone.
Yeah. And it's about superheroes gone bad, which I'm a big fan of. I love every time heroes go bad. I'm a big fan of Injustice. And when Spider-Man goes bad as well. I love all of that stuff. It's so cool. A couple more here. We've got DC Convergence. I have about 8 books of Convergence that I have never read. And it's all like what if series, right? Where it's all different universes and stuff. At least the mini series are, not maybe the main book. And I'm really looking forward to reading all of that because I don't read that much DC. So I like to read the events and the stuff that I don't really need to read all the time. So Convergence seems to be up my alley. One more here is Tezukumi's Kickstarter that I bought, which is a double hardcover slipcase edition. I wish I had it in my hands to be able to show you, but it's in a box. And it is all these writers from around the world and artists that pay homage to Tezukumi's work, including Astro Boy, of course, and other titles. And it looks just amazing. It's really a beautiful, beautiful set.
I can see G has a set behind her in that shelf.
Oh,
I have the monkey. I don't know if could you see that? I know.
Good eyesight.
I don't know if you're. Yeah, I do have the Monkey King because I noticed that was from Magnetic Press because you could really tell with the corners and the logo. Yeah. Excellent. I love the way that they did the hardcover, so it's great. So I didn't see that on Kickstarter, but now you're making me. I can't be spending more money.
There's the hardcovers. There's also the smaller versions as well that you can get. So yeah, hopefully you get one of those anyway.
Oh, you really do have good eyesight. I'm like, I can't even see.
Oh no, that was
sometimes Sharif tells me what I've got.
Usagi, sorry.
Oh, you're looking at the Usagi. Okay, yeah. Oh,
it's red.
I gotta show you something really cool. I'm wheeling away right now.
Oh, wow.
No.
I was at San Diego Comic-Con. I was talking to Stan Sakai. He just decided to doodle on it.
Listen. One thing I gotta say, G, she looks petite, but she's very strong because she carries these huge books to conventions, and of course, the creators see her carrying these huge books, and they all do like remarks and little doodles every single time. But it's amazing. You're talking to her in a con, and she's like leaning backwards. What's going on? Oh, my backpack is full of like huge, big books.
Legit bruises. I get bruises after cons.
She really goes through the pain, but she gets those remarks for sure.
Oh my god, that is so cool. I used to do that, and now I've learned to take dust jackets and just be very careful with them. You know?
That's actually kind of what happened here because I was going to San Diego, so I couldn't carry the big books. So I only brought the slipcase. And then he told me, accusingly, he was like, "Where's the books?" I'm like, you do realize I'm coming all the way from the East Coast.
I'm a fake fan. I sold the books, but I kept the slipcase. One title that I am really scared to try to delve into because I did when it first came out, and it was so much to it that I went, no, I'm going to stop here and I'm going to wait till it's finished, and then I'm going to read it all at once. And I keep putting it off because I don't know. Have you guys read this? It is Marvel Gods by Jonathan Hickman. What did you think?
It's Hickman. It's a
thing.
It went over my head the first time, the second time, and the third time I read it. But the fourth time I was like, okay, I get it.
I read the first issue and I'm like, I need time. I need to set aside time to read it.
Yeah, I feel like the series, and I'm like, but it's if you're really into like that very deep thinking, like it's full of very, very big conversations, philosophical conversations between two characters. It's full of that. But it really gave me the same feeling I got first time I picked up Sandman. It's that kind of like sort of very philosophical. Every word has a meaning, and but the characters are very deep, and the characters are very well written. Of course, it's Hickman.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed it. I don't know that it's for everybody,
Yeah.
but I
I think I
enjoyed
need
it.
to take a couple of hours out of my day one
Yes,
day to
yes.
read it
You
all.
need to like sit down on a quiet place, very good
Yeah.
lighting, just prepare yourself for it, and then accept you're not gonna get it on the first read. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
read it a couple times.
Well, apart from all the new books that come out, what I am reading, because I'm sick and tired of having all of these classic omnibuses on my shelf. I look over there, I've got Avengers. I look over there, I've got X-Men. I look over there, I've got Spider-Man. And apart from Spider-Man, all of this Silver Age stuff I've never read. And I'm like, that's it. I've got to do it. So I finally did it, and I started reading X-Men from
Oh,
the very, very beginning.
nice.
Now, this is all in omnibus format. Obviously,
Mhm.
later down the track, that's not so the case. I did just finish the first omnibus, and I loved it. It was so good because, I think when you are reading nothing but new comics, which I'm not going to lie, personally, nothing Marvel have been doing in the last year or so has really been making me go, wow. I go back to the old stuff, and it's like it's such a palate cleanser. And I find out where all of these original characters come from in their origins, and it's so cool to find out, man. Plus, there's all these weird things that happen that, like, for instance, in one issue at the very, very, like, one of the first 5 issues, Professor X has a thought bubble, and he's like, I don't know how I'll profess my love to Jean Grey. And then that's never mentioned again, and I'm like,
What?
so obviously they didn't go down that route, And then Magneto has these weird mind powers where he can do an astral projection and he can hypnotize people with his magnetic force. And I'm like, Magneto can't do any of that. What the hell's going on? So it's really cool to see how they started, and then they're like, we're going to change a few things here. So
Wow.
I've got a few thumbnails here. So the second one, that is the second X-Men omnibus that I've just started. But I have got so many years worth of omnibuses to go through. It is going to take me a very long time to get through all of it, to get to the Chris Claremont. I've got to go to the classic X-Men, all the way to the Inferno and the prologue and the Mutant Massacre and the Fall of the Mutants, the Hidden Years. And it goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to be reading X-Men for the next at least year, maybe 2, until I'm caught up to date. Because I didn't.
Oh.
That was the wrong button. I didn't read X-Men until Bendis started writing it. So I've got from the beginning up until Bendis to read, and then I'm up to date on X-Men.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go back like you to read the original because I never ever read the original X-Men.
Well, a lot of people
I
say
started
that.
with Chris Claremont and onward. Yeah.
Well, like people like Sharif say they can't. They're like, it's a little too wordy and things, which I get. But
Yeah.
it is the way that I used to feel too, which is why I never used to read
Yeah.
them either. But I just think if you haven't read them in forever and you finally do, it's different. It's really cool.
Plus that thing about the thought bubble with Professor X, kind of fantasizing about Jean Grey.
And the way they
whole
talk
thing
down
is-
to Jean as well.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's just fascinating. They're always like, listen here, girl. And like, I don't know, just the way they talk, it's like, oh my God, like you'd never write a character like this these days,
Yeah.
But
very
yeah,
cool.
that's it. Would you guys like
That's
to talk about anything else?
G?
No, it's just if you want to check us out, we're at PRH International Comics on YouTube and all the social media platforms. So it's probably easier than the long links.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're on Instagram, Facebook, and X, and of course YouTube. So definitely check us out if you're interested. And yeah.
And you can visit prhcomics.com,
Mhm.
which is the site, and and now you can see Boom titles in there too. They just added them, so there you go.
You might have seen our first Boom FOC is this Monday on the 24th. So with the R.L. Stein title.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah. So was it
cool.
Graveyard Club? Fresh Blood issue 1. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, we saw that as well. They did a homage cover to the Goosebumps for one of them, I think.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's great for nostalgia purposes too.
Exactly.
So.
All right. Well, all of those links will be in the description. We do want to give a big shout out to everybody that did stick around for nearly 2 hours to watch this show, because we do understand that you could be doing so much more other things with your time. You could be watching a movie, a TV show, another YouTube channel. Hell, you could even be spending time with your loved ones. But instead, you've decided to sit here for 2 hours and listen to 4 people talk about comics. And we really, really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. Even if you don't like the video, subscribe anyway. You can unsubscribe later. Like, no one's asking you to subscribe like forever. Just do it. Why not? And if we've got anything else to talk about, we will be back. Next week, we have our FOC weekly show. We do have some other surprises coming, but I'm not going to talk about them right now. We will see you next week. And guys, please inform me, if I had to say to you, what is Aussieverse? What would your answer be?
For life.
Fantastic. A big shout out to the individual that got this connection made. You know who you are, and I really thank you very, very much. G, Hector, thank you so much for coming onto the show. We would love to have you back sometime. You've been an absolutely wonderful people to be on. You're now part of the Aussieverse extended family. G, it was a wonderful talking to you over these last, seems like a while, but with the emails, you've been very, very courteous and gracious. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time, boys.
Yes.